Hello, how's it going? All right, so today I'm going to be going over polytheism and as a Christian how you can debate it, or maybe maybe you're Islamic, maybe you're Jewish, or you're atheist, or maybe you're just theist, maybe you just don't even know. Maybe you click on this video, but I want to go over why polytheism proves that Jesus Christ is God, and I'm going to be debunking polytheism and how you can debunk polytheism and how to prove that Jesus Christ is God. All right, so the main polytheistic thing we're going to be talking about is Hinduism here. So people are like, how can I defeat Hinduism? The best way to defeat Hinduism is to just use their own logic, okay? And here's I'm going to go over Hinduism as an example of polytheism and how it proves that Jesus Christ is God. We'll get into that. But so I'm asking here, do all their gods, right? Because polytheist means there's more than one God, there's multiple gods, which, I mean, every polytheistic religion has like tons of gods. Like obviously Mormons, they think, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, separate beings, but that's different. So they are often viewed as manifestations of a singular, eternal, and infinite reality known as Brahman. So they are all gods, and they are all eternal and infinite beings. So they come from Him, but they're all eternal. So how can there be multiple gods that are all eternal? That's impossible, right? So an eternal being cannot create an eternal being. It's impossible. Like logically, that's a logical fallacy. It does not make any sense. So that's a major problem that they have there. And the one, like I said, to prove atheism, I always say, hey, there's no evidence for atheism. There's no evidence to hold the atheist viewpoint. There's no evidence. But there is evidence to hold the theistic viewpoint. So I like to use that. And obviously, the two arguments that I'm going to use here is the cosmological and the teleological. So the cosmological means that there is a beginning, right? We know that from science, there was a Big Bang Theory, how long ago, 3.5 billion years ago. We know there was a cause and there was an event that happened that created the whole universe. So that means there is a God, there's a creator, right? We know that. Okay, polytheists agree. So there's one God. So that means that I'll go full screen here. That means that there has to be one God, one cause, one creator, one mind outside of the human mind, outside of space, time, and matter to create space, time, and matter. So that one innate being is that only being. How can that? There can't be multiple beings, because then someone would have to have created a different God, and it just gets to that: who created this God? Who created this God? Who created the first God? Okay, so then why did that God create a God? And how can a God create a God? A God cannot create a God. You can say, oh yeah, maybe he can, but if he creates a God, that God cannot be infinite or eternal. It makes no sense, right? Especially since, obviously in the Bible it says we're creating the image of God, so we're going to reflect God's creation. And how do we reflect God? Like, what? God can create gods and be more gods, and it's just very idiotic. And one of the points that I like here is that what's the point of becoming multiple gods? What's the point of becoming multiple gods, right? So if the first God could just do it all himself, what was the point of creating a moon god, a sun god, an ocean god? What's the point? If the first God already created all of that, or just created creation, or just created space, time, and matter, even if that there's still a first God, it logically does not make any sense. That's why I don't spend time on polytheism, because it's just, to me, it's just very idiotic. I gotta be honest. It just is, it just is. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So yeah, and then the jealousy thing, I like this argument too. It's jealousy. So I'll give you an analogy of like a wife, right? You have a wife. You have one wife. Then you go and you get another wife. Oh, geez. That wife is going to be jealous. The first wife is going to be jealous of the second wife. She's going to be jealous and mad. Same thing with God. So let's say I give more appreciation to the moon god rather than the sun god, or than the main god that created everything, which would be Brahm in Hinduism. Are you serious? It's just going to be jealousy. That's why in the Old Testament you see God, hey, do not worship any idols, because your God is a jealous God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. So that's beautiful, because if there is only one God, there is only one wife, they're going to be jealous if you go and cheat. It logically makes sense. We are all one being. We all have one mind, one being. Same thing with God. That's why he created us. It can't be multiple, because it doesn't make any logical sense. God would have to make logical sense in order for him to be God. Okay? Obviously you don't have to fully understand God, but it has to make logical sense. Okay, and especially since, you hold these monotheistic, like the main world is run on monotheism. That's besides the point. We'll get into this. Two more points here. Multiple morals. So morality, I use this as well in my atheistic viewpoints. So Morality. So the world runs by one moral standard. As we see, there's one good, there's one evil. We know there's good and there's evil. Where do you get that standard from? And all good, God, and all evil, which is opposite of God. Everything opposite of God. So if there's multiple gods, that means morality would be completely confusing, and it would be just atheism at that point. Well, hey, this moon god says I can do this. Well, hey, this god says I can do this. So it'd be really subjective. It wouldn't be objective. And if there is a god, everything has to be objective. Otherwise, you get no morality. So basically, Hinduism and polytheism has no morality because it's all just subjective because there's multiple gods. You can basically do whatever you want to do. And that would be, once again, an illogical fallacy. So, number 4, my last one, non-eternal infinite God. So there would have to be one God who is only eternal and infinite. Can't have multiple gods. And to me, all this makes sense. And then obviously we get here, I'll go over to this point. Okay, so all main monotheistic religions. So we go to right here. This is basically it right here. You have Judaism. This is monotheism now we're talking about. Since to me that just makes so much sense. But now they're going to be like, well, there's main, besides Christianity, there's a lot of monotheistic religions. And I'm like, okay. So we have Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Main ones, right? Understand. 4,000 years ago, and this is like, so the Sikhism is obviously right here. It says it created in the 15th century. Are we really going to hold that to a high standard? No. 19th century. Okay, it's being created by random people that have no idea of what morality or anything is. And then Zoroastrianism is one of the oldest. But basically, on how to compare the monotheistic religions, you have to compare the evidence. What evidence outweighs the evidence? What one contradicts? So Islam says it's from Judaism and Christianity, but it's completely not like Judaism and Christianity. It's not. It says it holds to the Christians and Jews. Go to the book, go to the Bible, but then it actually contradicts and says, hey, go kill the Christians and the Jews. Later into these, Muhammad waged war on the Christians and the Jews, and he called the Christians polytheists. Later, I don't think Muhammad himself did, but later they did. So here's the thing, and they still do today, right? So to me, it just, you outweigh the evidence now. It's like, okay, it's pretty obvious that there is one God. So here's the thing. This is why I like using this argument. This is why I thought about it this morning, and I made this video for this, because it makes sense to me. So if we're trying to prove that there's a God to an atheist, or just to a completely, let's just say, skeptic person, okay, atheism. Okay, there is a God, there's evidence, right? The cosmological, the teleological argument, the moral argument, there's a creator. The world is so infinitely perfect. I didn't get in the teleological, but it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. But the point is that there has to be one morality, one God, okay? And we make that point. There has to be a God, and then now we have to make the point that there is one God, not just a God. There has to be one God. And obviously we defeated it this whole video. You can watch it back. And then you get into that. And then it's like, okay, well then what religion then? If there's God, there's a God, and there's one God. Okay, what monotheistic religion is the correct one? And I would make the argument that Christianity is the best. Why? Because of the evidence. It's Judaism as well. So basically, I follow both these right here, obviously in different ways, and we can expand on that later on in a different video. But that's the most evidence is Judaism and Christianity. The Bible is an actual historical book, and there's no archaeological evidence. There's no evidence outside of the Bible that contradicts the Bible. There's nothing inside the Bible that has contradicted what has happened within history. It's the most accurate historical book we have in the whole world, right? 40 authors, 66 books, over 4,000 years, something like that, 2,000 years written. 4,000 years, yes, and over 2 or 3 continents. It's insane. And we take from the Greek manuscripts of Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's still the same today, before we even found those. So it's very good. And obviously Islam and these, and they want to say this is the world's one of the most oldest religions. Okay, let's compare the evidence of this guy to this. Let's compare the evidence. What's the evidence? Well, the evidence is that the Bible is historically reliable. This guy's just a random prophet who said there was one God. Who is this guy? You know what I mean? In ancient Persia, by the way, we know that the Bible talks about Persia as well. But here's the thing. This is really when it gets into this. The second point is, okay, there's a God, and I'll end it off with this. There's a God. He's one God. Okay, I made that point. That's the first point I always make to say that there is a God. So the second point is, okay, compare the evidence now. What monotheistic religion? What monotheistic religion? And I would look at the evidence and be, okay, compare all the evidences to all the monotheistic religions. But if there is a God, that religion has to be pretty high. It's not going to be any of these random religions right here. It's got to be like billions of people. Logically, that would make sense, right? Maybe not. Compare them all. Whatever you want to do. But yeah, every other, by the way. So yeah, that I would just make the argument that the Bible predicts the future, and it does. We already went over that in my previous videos about Daniel 9:26 or Isaiah 53. We already went over that. Okay, well that's all you need. There's one God, and the Bible is historically reliable and it predicts the future. Well, the God of the Bible is the only true God. It's pretty simple. And obviously, go to the New Testament and you figure out, hey, Jesus is God. Okay, then Christianity is true to me. And the third point I always used to make is just the resurrection for Christ, but that's a completely different video, and that will be it.